Yes, welcome into Sports Bet Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Monday, July 3rd. Big game breakdown. The key game on ESPN, the red-hot Red Sox against the Rangers. We'll also look at the Blue Jays and the Yankees. What's wrong with that Yankees bullpen? Plus, the deep dive. We continue with the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers win total 10.5. The Pacquiao debacle in a second. Let's start with free agency. It started Friday night. Look at this. It's time to seed 1 through 16 in the NBA and throw out conferences. With Paul George going to OKC, look at this from ESPN. Their top 14 players in the league last year, based on their rankings, 13 are now in the West, 1 in the East. And you know who that 1 is? With George going to OKC, they dropped from 80-1 to 40-1 to win the title, and 40-1 to 20-1 to win the West, Teddy.
Well, I was going to say that the preeminence of the best players in the NBA playing in the Western Conference. This is not something new. This has been 20 years now that the NBA has had a problem with the lack of stars in the East, and obviously with Paul George moving to the West, it's just one more notch. But you know, when you look at the two conferences, we're only 2 days in free agency, but I haven't seen anything that makes me think it's anything other than Golden State versus Cleveland Part 4 again next year, even with OKC going from 80-1 to 40-1 to win the title. That team's not going to beat the Warriors next year. Not a chance. But you can get the Lakers now at 10-1 to make the playoffs, up from 5-1 after OKC made that move. It's an interesting discussion right there. Of course, that's available at the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas.
Jeff Sherman also put some, at Golf Odds, some other props up because of the moves they made and also getting Teague and the Butler deal and signing Gibson. The T-Wolves are now minus $8 to make the playoffs. The Sixers, because the Pacers lost George, they were the 7th seed. The Bulls lost Rondo and also Butler, they were the 8th. The Sixers have gone from $125 up to $3 to make the playoffs. Pelicans still sitting there at minus 260. You mentioned the Lakers as well, but the East, oh man, I mean, it's do or die time for the Sixers. You tank this long, you better make the playoffs with the East being so bad.
In theory, they're supposed to, but you know, we go back to the West for a minute. You know, we have obviously the Warriors and the Rockets, locks to make the playoffs. The Spurs are locked to make the playoffs. OKC, in theory, should be. But you look at the back half, you know, Utah, big loss. Memphis, they're trending in the wrong direction. Portland, they made the playoffs last year only because no one beat them. And, of course, the Clips, without Chris Paul, may not be anywhere near the team that we've seen them in recent seasons. So a team like Minnesota has room to move up for a playoff spot this year. That's why they're chalk now. A team like the Lakers, yeah, they were 15 games under, they were, 26 and 56 last year, 15 games under 500, under the break-even mark of 41 and 41. But 41 and 41 was all it took to make a playoff spot in the West. So if the Lakers can win 15 more games this year, in theory, they'd be live to do it. Obviously, the market's not very much liking that possibility. But my point being is that the West is top-heavy. There's room for a Pelicans or a Lakers or another lesser squad, perhaps, to make a move up in those Western Conference standings. I think maybe a little more than the markets are giving them credit for as of right now.
Well, I'm not buying the Pelicans. Don't forget about Denver. Don't forget about Denver too. They added Millsap. They were a good team last year, and certainly Portland took off when they got Nurkic as well. Hey, controversy in boxing. I can't believe it. Saturday night, the fiasco in Australia. Horn plus 475 in some places. Looked like he was finished after the 9th round. It continues. Everybody had Pacquiao beating Horn except the judges. The 117 to 111. The judge should be drug tested for that one.
Yeah, I mean, Pacquiao opened minus 520 at Penny. They were bet as high as 571. They closed. Pacquiao closed minus 45, so the money did come on the dog late. And obviously, I mean, just look at the graphic right here. It shows it pretty clearly why the bettors and or pundits were upset here. Pacquiao won all the CompuBox punching statistics. What do you have? He had landed 182 punches compared to Horn's 92. He landed 32% of his blows compared to Horn's 15. He landed more.
15%. The guy connected on 15%.
Yeah, Pacquiao had more punches in 11 of the 12 rounds, and yet unanimous decision. But interesting to note, and again, controversial decisions in boxing. This is not new. This is not unusual. We see it all the time. Pacquiao, quote, "That's the decision of the judges. I respect that. we have a rematch clause, so no problem. So here's a 38-year-old fighter who now gets another big payday and a chance to avenge the tough decision, just like the same thing happened against Timothy Bradley back in 2012, where he got to avenge that decision twice, winning both times and making a whole lot of money doing it. Pacquiao didn't seem too worried about losing this one. The rematch is worth more for the boxers than the first fight is.
Bad bets, bad beats, bad for the books. Let's start with bad bets. 45-cent move on the Dodgers. They get beat. Padres avoid the sweep. Maeda had nothing, gave up a 5-spot early, and the Dodgers lose 5-3.
Yeah, Maeda's, he's the weak link right now in the Dodgers rotation. It's not even close. He's made it out of the fifth inning only one time in his last 7 starts. He really doesn't seem to know where the ball is going when it leaves his hands these days, if you look at this picture. Maeda was rough, and the Dodgers, all that L.A. money, ended up being a pretty bad bet. But really, when you look at Sunday's results, Pauly, a lot more bad results for the books than there were for the bettors.
Yeah, the good day for the players. Let's start with the Cubs. 25-cent move. They beat the Reds 6-2. Arrieta pitched well, about time, and Happ hit 2 home runs.
Oh, yeah, Arrieta, I think it was the best stuff of the season. He threw a one-hitter over 7 innings. And as you mentioned, Happ, for a Cubs offense that has dramatically underachieved this year. He's the bright spot. 2 more home runs. Now he's got 12 dingers for the season. Surprised to see all the money come in backing the slumping Cubs, but 25-cent move, bettors won that one. Bad result for the books.
Big 40-cent move on the Giants. That was Samardzija, too, and they won 5-3. The guy came in with a 2-9 record with an ERA of almost 5.
Well, yeah, and this is a classic case, and we've seen consistent support for Jeff Samardzija in recent starts. And if you're ever looking for a clear example, how do we call them the advanced metric stats, how much of the advanced metric stats factor in the betting marketplace? Here's a pitcher who opened going to the game 2-9 with a 4.74 ERA, and bettors were all over him. The wise guys, 40-cent move on San Fran. Why? Well, he's got the best rate of strikeouts to balls among walks among all starters this season. Now, 122-13, and that's just one of many quality advanced metric numbers for Samardzija. Obviously, through a gem against Pittsburgh, the Giants got the money. Samardzija could be a candidate to get moved at the trading deadline, despite some of those ugly mainstream numbers. Some of the contenders may well be looking at the advanced metrics and want to pick them up.
2 40-cent moves. Again, the Marlins, they beat the Brewers 10-3. And on Sunday Night Baseball, Scherzer was as low as $1.20, bet up to 160. Harper hits 2 home runs early. Scherzer had it on cruise control with the 5 runs, with the spot on the 5-run lead early.
Yeah, for Miami, a good team win for the Marlins. We talk a lot about Giancarlo Stanton and his, dominant numbers. He went 1 of 5 with 2 strikeouts. Didn't have any runs, didn't have any RBIs. All the other players on Miami, 16 hits and accounted for all the runs in that 10-3 win over Milwaukee. Bad result for the books. And boy, when you have Scherzer in a standalone night game, it was a real nightmare for the books. They got beaten up on this contest. Bryce Harper with a couple of early dingers. And look at this tweet from ESPN Stats and Info. Max Scherzer's last 8 starts. You want to talk dominance? 61 innings over 8 starts. He's given up 6 earned runs during that entire span. 87 strikeouts to 10 walks, and an ERA of 0.89. He's been the dominant hurler in baseball, no question, and the books took a beating, pricing him so low.
Man, a 35-cent move on the Indians. They went off a $1.30 favorite against the Tigers. They won 11-8. Verlander, 3 starts against Cleveland. This season, 14 innings pitched, 18 earned, 5 home runs, and the ESPN Stats and Info tweet. Verlander's streak of 331 straight starts with a strikeout was snapped, 10th longest in the live ball era, going back to 1920 in that one.
Yeah, when you're talking about 331 straight starts doing anything, it speaks volumes about what Justin Verlander has been. However, that was a rough outing on Sunday, and when you give 12 of the 22 batters that you face reach base, 9 hits, 2 home runs, yeah, it's been a nice run for Verlander. Don't think he sees another streak like that in his career, not even close.
Up next, big game breakdown, Blue Jays and the Yankees, and on ESPN, the Red Sox and the Rangers. Plus, we'll get to the Packers on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on Sportsbit, betting inside today. Time for Big Game Breakdown. Powered by BetOnline. They're more than just an online betting platform. They boast a focus on the player approach, and they built their reputation on offering clients nothing but the best from cutting-edge technology, enticing promotions, and the latest sports betting odds. The odds in this one, Blue Jays and the Yankees. BetOnline, Yankees $1.23, 9 the total. Stroman against Tanaka. Blue Jays had a chance to make their move last week against the Orioles and the Red Sox, but they went 1-5 and got outscored 34-11. The only win was Stroman's shutout of the Orioles. But 5 career starts in Yankee Stadium, an ERA of almost 6, and 5 home runs in 22 innings. And if he gets roughed up, what are they going to do? I mean, look at what's happened to this offense in Toronto, Teddy.
Well, I mean, Bautista's picked up his game since being moved to leadoff. But frankly, outside of Bautista and maybe Justin Smoke, just about every other bat on this team has been dead. They were certainly dead all last week. As you mentioned, they had a chance to make their move, and they went 1-5 and got outscored by 23 runs in the process, 34-11, on a homestand against teams that are ahead of them in the standings. You know, so that was a very rough week for Toronto. And Josh Donaldson, you think about what he's done. MVP candidate in the last couple seasons. Look at how far his numbers have tailed off here in 2017. He's gone 16 games now without a home run. He has 17 strikeouts during that span. Russell Martin's down to 213. Troy Tulowitzki's down to 233. I'm not sure if anything's left in the tank of those two veterans who have not lived up to expectation. Toronto can't hit right now, so basically, if Stroman and or the bullpen behind him falters, it's a problem for this squad. And as you mentioned, Stroman does not have a particularly good track record in the Bronx against a Yankees team that tends to go yard on this field against a home run that's been very, very vulnerable. Against a pitcher, I should say, that's been very, very vulnerable to the home run ball.
Well, the Yankees were 15 games over 500. Then they went on that West Coast road trip and got killed. They're on a 5-14 slide. The lack of depth in the starting rotation is caught up to them as they've been terrible. At least Tanaka's turned his game around. We'll get to that in a second. But how about the bullpen? Betances has been terrible. He couldn't hold a 3-run lead in the 8th at Houston. They would have won the first 2 games of that series. Chapman struggled as well. Look at this graphic. Chapman's career ERA was 2.12. This year it's over 3. And Betances was 2.24. His ERA's over 3 this year as well. 6-3 in the 8th. Again, the walk. He walked 3 batters. Just like the game against the White Sox, too, when they had the walk-off, when he hit 2 batters. Walked 2 batters and hit by pitch, and Abreu had the game winner. He struggled with his control as well, and they got beat in that one. He blew a 3-run lead. Tanaka, the last 2 starts, 14 innings, 2 runs, 14 strikeouts, and 4 walks, and the ground ball percentage, 62.5% and 72.2%. The last one, the best of his season. Maybe they have something there, Teddy, that he's figured it out after a horrible start.
Well, I mean, Tanaka's only issue has been the gopher ball. It's something we've talked about a lot here on Sportsbet. All the other stats are fine, and that's why the markets haven't given up on Tanaka, because the ground ball rate's been there, and the strikeout rate's been there, and the walk rate's been there. His issue is that when he misses high, and opposing hitters are going yard on him. And obviously that goes a long way towards messing up your ERA and messing up all your stats except the advanced metric stats. But I want to go back to that Yankees pen, because this has been a pen that for most of the season, as elite as it gets, and you look at them on paper, you say the Yankees aren't going to blow any leads, or not many leads. We don't worry too much about ERA from relievers, a very misleading stat for any bullpen. But the fact is that the Yankees, we can count on you every day guys in Betances and Chapman. They both shown vulnerability of late, and that would give me some concern when I'm talking about laying a price with the Bronx Bombers, even though not much of a price to lay with them in this ballgame.
All right, game number 2. Go to BetOnline. Powered by BetOnline. Red Sox $1.17. 11 the total. Porcello against Perez. Porcello in a second. Red Sox may have had their best series of the season. They routed the Blue Jays 30-6. Mookie Betts, 8 RBIs yesterday. 8 RBIs for a leadoff guy. How about that? How about a game of what if here on SportsBit? In the series, the Blue Jays were $1.25 on Friday, plus $1.45 Saturday, and they were favored Sunday. And they were. What if you had them plus 23.5 runs? Sorry, that money goes up in smoke as well, as they were hammered in this series Now, the difference with Porcello, 22-4 last year. Look at the ERA. This year, 4-10 with an ERA of 5.06. What has gone wrong, Teddy?
Well, a lot of it is baseball being baseball. When you look at the advanced metric numbers between this year and last year, the strikeout rate, virtually identical. The walk rate's a little bit up. The ground ball rate's a little bit down. But the swing strike percentage is up. So it's not, and that swing strike percentage, by the way, is at a career high. So none of the advanced metric stats are saying that anything dramatically is wrong. But when you look at some of the other issues, I mean, you talk about the plus 23.5 runs, for Toronto, and where they're favored in two of the three games in that series. You look at this, look at the numbers for BABIP, batting average on balls in play. Porcello, he was lucky last year. He had the best batting average against ball in play in his career, 269. This year, he's been unlucky, a 367 BABIP, which is his career worst. That's the difference between the ERA of 3.15 last year and 5.06 this year. That's the difference between his 22-4 last year and his 4-10 mark this year. Luck. I mean, batting average on balls in play. Now, the one thing we worry about with Porcello is the fact that his stats, advanced metric stats, are solid, but his mainstream stats are not. Has that affected him? How about this quote from Porcello after losing to the Twins in his last outing? 6 innings, 4 runs. It's not like they're beating the cover off the ball. It's just a couple of things here and there that I got to clean up. I'm not making excuses for myself. I definitely hold myself accountable for the loss tonight. But in the grand scheme of things, got to keep building off of what I'm doing and what we're doing. Doesn't sound to me like Rick Porcello has lost his confidence, even though he's had a rough start to the season.
And Perez may have pitched the best game of the year against the Red Sox at Fenway earlier, 3-1 in the bottom of the 7th. The pen blew it, but he threw 113 pitches in that game. He hasn't been the same sense before going on the DL. 5 games, 25 innings pitched, 19 earned runs. That's an ERA of 6.84. With Hamels back, Perez could be pitching for a spot in the rotation. They're also playing for the 18th straight day, so they need him to go tonight. If he loses it, the middle relief may be next. The Rangers need help with this bullpen. It's been terrible. They need the starters to go long. Look at the bullpen ERA. Throw this graphic up. Red Sox ERA this year, 2.90. The FIP, 3.40. The Rangers bullpen, 4.67. The FIP, 4.52. Definitely something to watch in that one. NFC North, we rock and roll up next with the Green Bay Packers. Win total 10.5 on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Green Bay Packers in a second. Teddy going to Costa Rica. Teddy, what's going on in Costa Rica early August?
Hell yeah, I'm going to Costa Rica. I just got back, and I want to go back. You can join me. Join Clay Travis from Fox Sports, Gil Alexander from the VSiN Network, Matthew Holt from CG Technology / Canner Gaming, a whole host of other big names in the sports betting world. We're talking about the inaugural International Football Betting Conference. That is Friday and Saturday, August 4th and 5th in San Jose, Costa Rica. Visit www.ifbc.live. Again, International Football Betting Conference. That's the IFBC. Sign up for your free invite today. Free. Again, www.ifbc.live. Check it out right now.
Here we go. Green Bay Packers win total 10.5, under $1.25. Last year, 10-6 straight up, 9-6-1 ATS, 10-6 to the over, 17 giveaways, which was 8th, 25 takeaways, plus 8 margin was 6th in the league. Offense, 5.8 yards per play, above average, 4.5 yards per rush, above average, 7.2 yards per pass, and 35 sacks allowed average. Hard to believe that this team started 4-6 with Aaron Rodgers, but they finished strong. Something to consider here, and it's always big, especially if you're looking at the win total going over. The quarterback does not like the head coach, and they don't get along, and that's cause for concern, Teddy.
We know there was a fair bit of disconnect, McCarthy-Rodgers last year, where more than a little disconnect between the two, but it appeared as if things were worked out. We haven't heard any rumblings in the offseason, and we're talking about one of the, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. All apologies to Tom Brady, all apologies to anyone. But, I mean, that offense, with all the issues they had last year, offensive line questions. They were using converted wide receivers. They're starting running back. They had, injuries at wide receiver. With all of that, they're finishing in the top quartile in yards per play. The running game was there, and Rodgers was once again brilliant. As you mentioned, 8th in the NFL with only 8 takeaways. But the bigger concerns last year, and much of what got them off to that 4-6 start last year, the defense wasn't very good, Pauly, and that's where they spent a good portion of the offseason working on.
Yeah, offense stunk at the start of the season, too. 6 yards per play allowed, tied for dead last with Indy and New Orleans. 40 sacks, tied for 6th. Opposing QB rating, 97.2 and 4.1 yards per rush allowed. They drafted King, the cornerback, out of Washington. Also, the Jones, a safety out of NC State. I like Williams, a running back from BYU as well. And another weapon for Rodgers. Cook goes to Oakland, and they get Bennett to play tight end from Green Bay as well.
Yeah, and that's a big pickup. Martellus Bennett, a guy who has a real immediate impact potential. But let's go back to the draft for a minute. You talk about King and Jones. The King might have been the best combination. I love this guy at quarterback. He was a difference maker for the Huskies, and he's big. He's 6'3". He's got a potential to be a legitimate shutdown corner pretty early in his NFL career. And I love Josh Jones, the safety, as well. So you talk about those two in the draft, plus the addition of they got somebody else to do. They had a big free agent pick. They cut Shields, they let Micah Hyde go, and then they re-signed their former cornerback, Devin House, who was in Jacksonville. So when you're talking about three young guys in the secondary, there's talent there that they didn't have a year ago at cornerback and safety. I think that will certainly help a defense that, as you mentioned, they gave up 6 yards per play last year. That was tied for the last in the NFL. You don't win Super Bowls doing that. Yeah,
well, Packer fans all over Ted Thompson, too, and they should be. They haven't made a big move in a long time. O-line, average, not above average, not elite. What do you think of the strength of schedule?
Yeah, let me go to the O-line for a minute because, they have two of the better pass protecting tackles in the NFL. They really do, and Bakhtiari and Balaga. But the interior of that line is loaded with question marks. They're hoping that Kyle Murphy or Jason Spriggs can be difference makers this year. And if one of those guys can make the switch effectively to guard, it will help them a long way. But at least they've got the tackles to protect Aaron Rodgers. From a scheduling standpoint this season, Green Bay is not in bad shape. Their schedule is weaker than last year. Last year's was slightly tougher than an average schedule. This year they're right at 500 in terms of where their opponents are priced for this year's, based on this year's season win totals. They get a bunch of early home games. They do have a fairly tough slate early. They have Seattle, at Atlanta. They got at Dallas, New Orleans, Minnesota, all before the break. So I wouldn't be surprised if they start off mediocre. But the back half of that schedule, there's not an opponent that they can't be. The one game at Pittsburgh in Week 12 is the one that stands out. And even with that Carolina Week 15, the division games aren't brutal for Green Bay, not in a division where all the other teams are lined at 500 or less. Green Bay's lined right where they should be. They're a 10.5 win team. FBO has them at 10-6. They finished 10-6 last year. If I had to bet the Packers, I'd probably bet them as a 10-win team, not as an 11-win team. But I wouldn't be surprised that it's not anything that I'm going to get to the betting window with when I have when I think I got a half a game's worth of edge. That's not enough.
All right, we close out the division Wednesday. We're short show with the 4th of July. Wednesday with the Minnesota Vikings. Remember, they started 5-0 before all the injuries to the offensive line and the rest of the team as well. Money time, play of the day, betting number 911. Red Sox, $1.17. We ran down the BABIP numbers on Porcello. We don't like the Rangers bullpen and Perez. Red Sox on fire offensively in first place. 3-game lead now over the Yankees. They'll keep it going tonight. Let's lay the $1.17 on the road. Happy 4th out there. We'll talk to you Tuesday. A lot of day games to go over as well. Maybe some other big moves in the NBA. We'll see where Hayward winds up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.